Yvette, Brad. And Lori, I'll buy you a new hand.
Oh.
You know this is being recorded.
Yeah.
I think that's
that's right.
official
Okay.
under the law.
Yeah, I'm okay. But it's cool.
Hi, Connie. Janine, could you turn your video on for just a half a second, please?
I am trying to do that.
Okay.
And this is not my computer. This is Dr. Sarah Lingle's.
Okay.
And it's a challenge.
Okay. That's
so we may not have video of me tonight. I'm not sure.
Well, we're just glad to have you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Tell us where you're logging in from, please. Janine.
Hi, Erica. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Lowell.
And we have a new person here tonight, Ann Nelson in the bottom.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Hi, Ann. Welcome.
Okay. Okay. We're at 3 minutes after.
I think we should begin.
So I think we should begin. Hi, everybody. And we have another new person, Erica Carter, friend of Greg's.
Yep.
Hi, Erica. Greg, why don't you lead off?
Back.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to our session, our Thursday session. And I think without any further ado, the topic is on anti-Blackness. And I thought last week's session was absolutely excellent. And I really am enjoying seeing how we're all gelling and working so well together. And I was thinking yesterday as I was kind of working about all the different things that we have learned. And I invite you to do that too this week, is to think about just the various things that are new to you, the new awarenesses and the new view that we have and that we're learning together, because I know for me, it's changed dramatically. I'm just so grateful for your help in that and for the learning that's occurring with us as a group and then also as an individual. And I think as we get toward the end, I'm going to talk to Father Fred about that, but just as a nice summary, we will kind of point out some of those things about those concepts and kind of a new lens that we're looking through as it relates to racism. It's great. So we have a very special guest tonight. It's a colleague of mine, and it's Sergeant Yvette Shephard. She's with the Oregon State Police, and she will explain the rest of her background. She's got a very interesting background. And she's got a very bright future ahead. She's about ready to write chapter 2, which I'm excited for. Yep, chapter 2. And she's going to talk to us tonight about the concept of anti-Blackness. So, Yvette, welcome.
And Yvette, let me plug in just really quickly. Yvette wants to have this be very conversational. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or denote it in chat and you'll be recognized. Okay, Yvette, it's all yours.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Just give me a hand wave.
Yes.
You can hear me okay? All right. Just wanted to introduce myself before we get started. Again, my name is Yvette Shephard. I'm a sergeant with the Oregon State Police. I've been employed with the state police for 26 years, 10 months, 22 days, but who's counting? But I am excited about my career and like Greg was saying, the next chapter of my career, which is I get to go be a full-time grandma. And I've been waiting for this day for a while and I'm excited. And along with those, I'm looking to, do some things with our young people to also, give them skills, life skills that'll help them as they make career moves and move along in their life. So as I said earlier, or as Ms. Cole said earlier, this is going to be very interactive. I want to pick your brains. I want us all to work together and work through this because this is a tough topic, and a lot of that you all have been embarking upon, talking about racism and how do we move on from a country of racism and dealing with racism and the justice system. They all unfortunately go sometimes hand in hand, and we have to figure out ways of breaking down systemic racism so that we can all grow and we can all help our future generations to come on how to move past these issues. If I could start from when I was born, 1965, we all could remember what was going on in 1965. It had to do a lot with the voting rights and different things like that of African Americans. But another thing that comes to my mind is about segregation with this Brown versus School Board in Toledo, where it talked about the young lady who wanted to go to an all-white school and how there was a lot of contention for that, or there was a lot of trying to use a nice word, a lot of pushback for her going to the school, and how it took a lot of courage. It took actually the National Guard and everything to get her to school. And so it kind of brought back those things of flashbacks of what it was like for me when my parents decided to move to Vancouver, Washington for me to get a better education. And I began to experience some of that racism that I never had felt before. And I really couldn't understand what that meant and why I was disliked just because of the color of my skin. Where at the school that I went to, there were only 10 Black people in the school. And so having a small group of people trying to relate and trying to work through issues that we've read about in the past, but never had experience, and not having a school board that understood that, I felt like sometimes it worked against us. And I don't mean to go into the story, but I think it's important to understand, like there was one, I think it was Halloween, where they allowed the football team, basically, which you can imagine in Vancouver, the biggest of the biggest corn-fed guys walking around in their KKK outfits. And they were told at that time that it was okay and it was just a joke, and we should, as the Black students, just get over it. Even though they scratched in our lockers, we're going to kill you in words, or slipped us notes and different things. And when we approached the school board about it, they said it was just in jest, no big deal. You guys are okay, nothing happened. Well, later on, another gentleman confronted them, and he was severely beaten up because of that. And when they went to the school for failure to protect and failure to protect the rights of the students, they said because he approached them that he was the cause for the assault that was on him. And so when we talk about tonight anti-Blackness, we're talking about racism just based on the color of skin. Okay, so before I get started, I just want to take a moment and ask you all, to you, what does anti-Blackness mean? What does that mean to you? And then we'll come back to this and saying, now, how do we move on from it? So if we could just go around the room, what does anti-Blackness mean to you?
Everyone, if you would unmute yourself and just go around the room and pop out a couple of words or phrase.
What's it mean to you?
No, just trying to think.
I think it just is the
What's it
pervasive
mean to you?
racism that permeates the whole society that we're in. Everything from the educational system to the economic system to our sort of geographical apartheid in terms of housing. And I think as a white person, I don't really have a concept of how much it permeates society because I don't have that as a life experience.
Okay.
I think assumption, basic assumptions like, well, you know, you're really not very bright. You really haven't had much education. You're really kind of poor, and you might be even a little dirty.
I came out of Vancouver, Washington myself, and I've lived there since 1968. I had no idea about racism unless I picked up a Life magazine, until I moved to Vancouver and somehow became very close friends with some Black people. And my education began then. And anti-Blackness to me is just a big wall. Don't cross it.
Mm. Mm.
I think it's kind of, yeah, like you say, a big wall. And as long as you're on the other side of it, I don't see you. I don't see any problems you have. I don't care.
I think it's judgmental that of the color of the skin, regardless of the person. You don't know the person, so you judge them because of the color of their skin. So it's judgmental instantaneously.
Well, for me also, anti suggests that there's an aggressive reaction against anybody of color.
Yeah.
If you're the person on the receiving end of it, there isn't hope. Everything is against you, whether it's your color, whether it's your thinking, whether it's your life. It truly means that I choose that you don't have hope. I choose that you don't have value.
I think that it's really difficult to kind of narrow it down what I was trying to come up with. But I think I've heard a lot about people commenting about things that are being, oppressive. There's prejudice and bigotry and all of those things. Those are tools, I find, of the end goal of anti-Blackness. Those are the things used to achieve the anti-Blackness. And so you could think of it as being against, but you could also think of it, it means in replacement of, instead of. And that could mean, anti-Blackness could mean, so it's such a broad thing, but I'll just pick one little thing that I think about it and say that. It could be dealing with being, instead of looking black, sounding black, being black, your appearance, whiten it, please, lighten it, soften it, tone it down, being instead. And so it's a way, all those other things, I believe, are tools used to achieve the erasure or the fading or the whitening out of Blackness. Okay. And that word itself, it's so interesting. It's a adjective, but it's not a nationality. It's not, there's no, people with brown skin permeate this planet. People with dark skin. And so there's just a lot. I'm going to stop talking there. Thank you for letting me voice an opinion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think for me, which keeps coming up is you are different. You look different. I don't know who you are. I don't understand you. So you're different. And I don't know if that's anti-Blackness or not, but that's how I'm interpreting those words.
Okay. Good. Is there anyone else?
I think it's a reduction, anti, get rid of, reduce, that kind of thing. And Yvette, just a side note, as you're going to see, this group, you'll have no trouble getting feedback and good commentary. So enjoy your time here.
I appreciate it.
I'm so
If
proud.
everyone would mute yourselves again, please, that would be great. Thank you.
Rich and Janice have something to add.
I've got one little thing to add. I'm Janine. I'm sorry, I'm blacked out. I can't get my video to work. I was in the military for 16 years. I was an intelligence officer. And when I first joined, I was in basic training, not an officer. I was enlisted before I became an officer. And I went through a female cycle, because back then in the 1990s, they split you up by gender. The vast majority of the people going through that were Black, and I had never been surrounded by so many Black folks in my entire life. My eyes bugged out. And I thought I was okay with stuff. I thought I was, sophisticated and knowledgeable, that I could handle it, but it was so different because my high school had 3 people that were that considered themselves Black African Americans. And so I never was with Black folks. I never understood them. I just always with white people, and it was shocking. The drill sergeants were Black. The people around me were Black, and I started understanding them, and I stopped thinking of them so much as those people, and they became friends of mine. And when they became friends and we started working together as a team, as you all do when you go through basic training, because they break you down. They break you down into nothing. So you either pull together whoever's around you or you don't make it. And we got to know how people are different and how, we give more encouragement to the little gal because she was kind of, a little bit bigger than us. And we would give her encouragement, and she was getting thinner, and she was getting better, and she was getting faster. What I discovered is that they're just everyone is an individual, but until you actually have to work with people on a day-to-day basis, you don't get it. It's otherness until you make it together as a team or you don't make it. This is not a thing where, well, I like white people, so I'm going to be over here and graduate with these white. No, you all graduate together, you don't make it. The Army has a wonderful way of cutting through the racial crap because it's about survival. And that tends to spill over beautifully into unexpected ways. And as tough as it has been on racial change and progress in general, the Army, that one thing has been a common thread that has pushed policies faster than anything else. Is when that helicopter lands, or that EVOC helicopter lands, nobody cares what color you are if you're flying it. It's amazing how that one thing has kind of helped us. But that's just the Army experience. So
Very good, Janine, and welcome, and thank you for your service. Excellent comments. I see that Yvette is working away on the board.
So what I did was I wrote down words where I was hearing from when I talked about what blackness or anti-blackness means. And some of the things I got is it carries a negative connotation. It reduces people. It means you're not seen. I'm not gonna say kind of. There's a wall, don't cross it. Everything is against you, oppressed, the stereotypes, and you are different. And when you look up the word, if you look up the word in the dictionary, when it talks about Black, it says the bout of light. Am I correct? When you look up the word white, it says it means pure, right? Honest and sincere and different things like that. So just knowing that your name or your ethnicity has been attached to everything negative, it already affects how the world perceives you. So if we're living in a world where just because I'm Black or the color of my skin is tanner than someone else, or I have, as one would say, more melanin, then I am judged solely based on my melanin and not on the character or who I am. So we already have stereotypes, for every ethnicity that there is out there. But when it comes to the stereotypes of Blacks, you have that they're lazy, they steal, they're drug addicts, they're gangbangers, but there's all these negative aspects come to them. But we fail to see where they are also productive, where we built a country, or help build a country. Can I say that? We created a lot of inventions while on plantations, different things that we did where we couldn't get the copyright because we didn't have the money to do it, where inventions were stolen because we couldn't attach a name to it because we didn't have the means to do the copyright laws and different things like that. And so we're looking at different things where it's been suppressed for Black people because of I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the means, right? And I don't want to talk too much about privilege, but when we think about anti-Blackness, this is a form of racism specifically damaging for Black people. It is something, a racism that's destined for Black people. So how many of you heard the comment, I don't see color, I'm colorblind, right? You can raise your hand because I'm sure you heard it, right? So I was in a discussion when the first killing, the first murder happened of a young Black man, Rice, Tamir Rice. I think that's how you say his name. No, it wasn't him. I know the guy's name, Zimmerman, but I can't think of the gentleman who was killed. And we first had, I'm sorry?
It was Trayvon Martin.
Thank you very much, Trayvon Martin. And we think about the situation. You have a phone call coming in where a Hispanic man is working security, and he sees a young Black man walking down the street with a hoodie on, with a soda and some Skittles. The records from dispatch say, do not pursue this man, leave him alone, right? But Mr. Zimmerman continued to pursue this man, got into an altercation with this young man, and the young man lost his life. The first thing they did was they vilified the young man. They vilified him. If there's a continual trend that we see when it comes to Blackness, when a person of color, I don't want to even use that word because I'm going to talk about that. When a Black person is arrested, we immediately, instead of seeing them as a human, we dehumanize them by saying, well, he was an old gangbanger. He was raised up in poverty. He had all these strikes against him. So he was basically doomed to make these mistakes. He was doomed to go down this pathway, right? And that's not a fair assumption just because of a person's skin color, right? Have there been certain things called redlining? I don't know if you guys have talked about that. Have we talked about redlining? Edna? No.
No, have not.
Basically, where it's basically a system that was put into place where Blacks were unable to purchase property based on some certain things that they would mark against people, where you didn't have the privilege or the assets available to you to purchase. And so when you would try to go to a particular area to buy property, they would already have 3 or 4 strikes against you where you weren't able to advance or buy those properties, right? And so there became strikes against you based on who you were and not what you brought to the table.
And Yvette, that was backed up by the banks too, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. So and if you check into or watch today, you have the same type of situations happening, right? Where I read an article where a young lady and her husband were trying to sell a home, a mixed couple, a white man and a Black lady. When the people went into their house and they saw when they saw pictures of the mixed family on the wall, the value of the house was listed at, I think, $300,000. Where when they saw the pictures of this Black lady on the wall with this white man, they only offered them less than $200,000 for this house. And so then they took all her out, they basically removed her from the house and had the white man stand there and represent this house as my house and I'm selling it. And he got over $400,000+ for this house. This is what I'm talking about when we talk about racism in this world that continually occurs. I can't get anywhere because of the color of my skin, even though I am educationally qualified, financially qualified to have the same rights, or I should have the same unalienable rights as the Constitution says, but I'm being held back just because the color of my skin, right?
I read that same article, Yvette. I was shocked, but yeah, it still exists today. It's part of that systemic problem that we're dealing with. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank
you. So how many of you had this situation happen? And I know I'm going to get a couple hands. You're walking down the street. You're approaching a white couple and a Black couple walking down the street, where the white couple crosses the street just because you're coming down the street and they continue to walk. Yeah? Have you ever had that happen to you? I've lived in my neighborhood for over 25 years. I was walking down my street the other day, and right as I come to a guy just across the street, this is before COVID came out, so there was no excuses for contact, okay? Crossed the street and kind of picked up the pace, clutch, or you heard they get in the elevator, they're clutching the handbags or different things like that. They're pulling things close. These are the different things we're talking about when we talk about racism. You're judging me based on the acts of a few before you even get to know me.
And Yvette, what would have happened if you'd been in uniform when you were walking down the street?
If I had been in uniform, I'd probably like, hey officer, how you doing? You're great.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a big difference, and I talk about that as well, you know, when I've had with my coworkers of how understanding who I am as a person, because I'm a complex person in a sense, because I'm a Black female first and foremost, then I'm an officer, and then I'm a Black law enforcement officer. And so that presents other obstacles for me, because in the Black culture, we don't particularly like cops, right? Because if you look about in the 1800s, where they're basically in the south part of the country, basically cops were used for what? Rounding up slaves, right?
That's right. That's right.
So the negative notion that all cops are just working for the man and their Uncle Toms and their sellouts because they're trying to take all Black people and put them in jail, right? And I've even been called that. And someone told me one night when I was working that I wasn't Black. And it was a young Black man that I arrested. I'm like, I better, and I wasn't trying to be funny, but I was like, I better call my mom and let her know I just found out that I'm not Black. And I said, what kind of sense does that make where you would make that kind of statement against me, where if I feel like if I'm not working within the system, how can I change the system? Right? How can we change anything if we're not working within, and if we're not educating ourselves, if we're not trying to get past whatever systemic racism or systemic barriers that are holding us back from achieving? And that's where anti-Blackness comes in, and how we have to figure out a way to tear it down, to abolish it, to make it disappear, because we are being judged solely based on skin and not the content of me. Because the content.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Where does the term Uncle Tom come in? Because if you're a Black person and you like white people, Barack Obama had that. Almost every leading Black politician or citizen is called an Uncle Tom by his own people. So it's a two-way street.
Agreed. And I was going to talk about that with the different word called colorism. But basically, when you become, and I see Erica just went unmuted, so I'm sure she has something to say. I just got that as well. But basically, when you try to improve your status, and you're doing things to move past the generational curses, if I can use that word, then you're basically selling out your culture because you're not being true to your culture because you want better. And help me up with that if I'm wrong, Erica. And even
you're not wrong. It's just that that's actually a misnomer, because Uncle Tom is a character in a book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and the character Uncle Tom was actually just a wonderful man. He was no sellout by any means. The bad person in that story was Sambo. So technically, if you know, so it's funny how black people misuse that term because Uncle Tom was not the traitor. But anyway, but yeah, it's been misused. But the officer is right. I'm sorry. What, Miss Shephard?
Yvette.
Yvette. Okay, good. I feel better now. Thank you, Yvette. But yeah, they say that when it means, you know, you're kind of a race traitor.
Mm-hmm.
But I always just giggle a little because in literature, I mean, that's the wrong thing to call the race traitor.
Agreed.
It's a really uneducated term. People sound silly to me when they use it.
Yvette, and that she's making a great point, Erica, because it also means, or what I have thought it means is that the Black person is trying to be like a white person.
Right. That too, yeah.
And
right.
And during my lifetime, I have heard so many people, and I was in the legislature for a lot of years, and I've heard so many people talk about in private, well, they're just Uncle Toms.
Mm-hmm.
So Erica, your comments, and Lowell, thank you for bringing that up. But Erica, your comments were very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the part that when we talk about, there's another word I just brought up because I circled it on my piece of paper that I wanted to bring up. It's called colorism. I'm waiting on Jackie to jump in at some point. I know she has a word to say, but we also have in our own Black culture a word called colorism, where based on the color of our skin, the texture of your hair, and different things like that, we have our own prejudices, if I'm being honest, within the Black culture. That is something that we tend to pull each other down or talk negatively about each other, like with the word sellouts and different things like that, because your skin is lighter, you have better hair than me, or you have more education than me. But those are things that we also have to address within the Black culture of colorism. Jackie, come on now.
Jackie, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, well, all of that stems back to the invention of whiteness versus blackness. That's why I don't like using white or black. And the closer that you could get to not having color in you, the better treatment you got. So it comes from that. And usually the enslaved people who were in the house were usually mixed or mulatto, and they were lighter skinned. And so they were, they sometimes were treated a little bit better. And so there was this enmity that was created between the field hands and the house servants, the enslaved in the house. And so again, it goes back to the whole idea of divide and conquer. There was a division that was sown between the poor, indentured servant and the enslaved. And then there was a division that was sown between the field enslaved and the house enslaved. As long as they could keep us fighting each other, then the ruling class could win. And that's been and it continues to be, and we're seeing it acting out today. So it's the same thing, just a new picture, but it's the same idea.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yes, ma'am. Erica?
Oh, yes. Jackie made me think of the Willie Lynch letters. The Willie Lynch letter is what it's called, where he would gave a prescription on how to, if you're not familiar with it, a lot of people do know about it, so I don't want to sound condescending by explaining it, but I'll be really quick. It's just a blueprint of how to break a Black person, how to destroy them, and how not only destroy that one that you're targeting and that family, but generations. And he claims in his letter that it will last if the slave owner follows his method precisely, that it will last for about 400 years. He said that it would become, I'm going to use my thoughts on it, it would become systematic, like and automatic,
right?
Where the Black people themselves would perpetuate this type of treatment, so that which is why one white man could control so many strong Black men.
Agreed.
No, it's not. How is that possible? Well, the mentality, had been really, really changed in these people, and out of fear or whatever, I believe that has happened. This is some of these things are so difficult to say out loud when you're having a conversation with someone who is not Black, or someone who has not grown up in a Black family, or who's mixed or whatever, someone who is just not white only. It's hard to say some of this stuff. And so I'm if I'm stumbling, it's just forgive me, but it's so difficult to say some of these things because I don't want to sound rude, but the facts are, I believe right now, why Black women have a reputation for being more violent, and then sometimes they are. They beat their children. They're known for being just really hard on their children, but mostly they're girls. Where they're boys, they're a little bit easier on. And so they cripple the boys and push the girl out front. And so she has to be strong. She has to be a strong Black woman. She's got to do, and there's no white person around making this happen. This is just something that is almost in the DNA of Black people, where it just replicates itself like RNA. It just keeps going and going. And without conversations. You got to start somewhere. I was telling someone today about this meeting, and I said, overall, it's about ending racism. And the smirk she gave, like, well, you know, that's futile, basically. And it was another, it was a light-skinned sister I was talking to. And then I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to force her to come, but it's got to start somewhere.
Agreed.
Like the other lady that was talking about the Army, how the Army does not practice racism. Well, it used to, and I would be so curious to know what shift, because if it can happen in the Army, which was extremely segregated and very racist, if that's gone now, and someone put a wonderful comment in there that said they live near Fort Hood, and that it's very integrated and it's so not racist. Well, if it can happen there, it can happen.
Right.
Somehow. So I'm going to stop now. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Yvette, can I just add something here? Yvette?
Yes.
Erica, I just wanted to say that one of the things that, as Greg and Lori and I set this program up, one of the things that we said as a ground rule early on was just open your heart, say what you're thinking, say what you're feeling, and we're not judgmental. So anything you want to say is perfectly okay. You don't need to worry about that. Thank you, Yvette.
Yeah, I was going to add into that too, that Erica, last week, we all as a group and individually crossed that rude bridge and we embraced it. And it was, I mean, we had some really interesting moments, but we did exactly the way you're feeling. So don't worry.
And Yvette, Ifar had a comment. Ifar.
Yes, and I thought Bobby as well, and I don't want to miss her.
Yes.
Ifar?
Hi, Yvette. I'm Ithar Hasbala. I'm in Kansas. And I just wanted to make a comment about colorism. So I'm Sudanese American. So that's a layer on its own because it's like Afro-Arabs, right? Black Arabs. But then also, you know, I did a little bit of research when I was an undergrad on skin whitening creams. And I mean, it's billions of dollars, right? To try and have women use these creams. I mean, not just in the US, among the African-American community or the Black community, but also India, China, you know, I would say anywhere where people aren't white, right? And so there's that layer, but then it also leads to so many, I mean, the chemicals in those creams lead to cancer and, you know, all these things, but then also hair products. Like now there's a movement with hair products, you know, that are more natural, that use less chemicals. You know, I went natural very recently, but basically, you know, it's all these chemicals again, right? So for me to have softer hair, whiter skin. And so I think slowly there's just this health movement, and hopefully that will also address colorism, that, you know, Black is beautiful and all of that. But I think that, you know, we struggle with that, not here in the US, but anywhere you step foot in the world is still the same problem.
Agreed.
So I agree with everything that Ms. Jackie just said. And also Erica, that it's really, really a problem. It's an identity thing.
Agreed. Agreed.
Bobby, do you have a comment? No, you're good. Okay. Anyone else a comment at this point? Okay.
So we talk about, like you say, colorism. We talk about hair, clothing, vernaculars, different things like that. How many of you ever heard, you know, you talk like you're white? Why do you talk like that? And that was one of the things that when we moved back to Portland from Vancouver, that's the first thing I was approached with. Why do you talk like you're white? Why do you think you're better than us? And I'm like, I don't think that I'm better than you because I have education and I'm using the correct, proper English to, you know, give my thought. And if we go, and I'm going to get on this in a second, but if we were like trying to condemn or to chastise someone who would get better education or who would seek to do better for themselves, we within the Black culture would be like, I don't like that common crabs in a barrel, but we'd always try to oppress that person so they felt guilty about getting a better education, felt guilty about trying to change the way they, they act and the way where they lived and different things like that. So it became a enigma that's like, oh, you're moving out because you think you're better than us. Whereas like, no, I just want better for myself. And in trying to improve myself, it seems like you get ostracized from your own culture because they think you have forgotten where you came from. And that's one of the things that we always talk about within the culture. You must have forgotten where you came from. It's like, no, I haven't forgotten my history, but I'm also trying to change generational curses or generational situations that have happened in my family because I want better for my child. And so I was reading an article, and I think these happened a couple of years ago, where they were telling young men that had locks, such as I have myself, or that there's a new rule that in some employers can deny hiring an adequate and capable employee based on their hair. And so we're going with that. Back in 2003, I started locking my hair. And the first time I changed my hair, because we go in the Oregon State Police, we go by military standards. And I used to tell them, I said, this book that we have based on how a hair should be, my hair doesn't do that. Black people's hair doesn't do this particular thing. My hair is not straight. My hair doesn't do this. And so now we're talking about you're wanting me to change or to assimilate to something that is not me or nor my culture. And so when I braided my hair, they said, well, we need to check with the Office of Professional Standards to make sure that you can actually do that. And I'm like, based on who I am, yes, I can wear my hair a particular way because it says it has to be neat and off my collar. And then they were trying to tell me how I couldn't, and you couldn't have your hair this color. You couldn't do this with your hair. You couldn't do that. So I said, this policy is not written for me. And in some 26 years later, we still haven't addressed the policy for how people of other ethnicities should wear their hair or how they should act in certain ways. We've not had any person from the Muslim culture get hired with our department and be told that you can't wear your, is it called a jahib? Am I pronouncing it right?
Hijab.
Thank you.
Hijab.
We've not hired anyone to even address that. So if a person comes, are you going to tell them that they can't do this, but based on their religious culture, they should be able to?
Right. And here's where the UK shows you some of the ways you can take that culture from India and incorporate. Stop trying to lay your veneer of your white culture on top of their cultural norms. Accept the Indian warriors the way they are, let them use their headdress, and if it does not get in the way of the performance of their daily duties, leave them alone. And what you discover is that they adopt British style of army operational wear of their uniform, and it works and it looks good and it's neat and clean, but it maintains their individual identity and their culture. And that is what we've got to do. And only just recently did the US Army discover that women need actual different uniform types. Oh my goodness, tell me it isn't so, really. After years of, I'm sorry, but this really doesn't fit me. Do you have like a guy's small?
You're right.
And a woman had a 5, so she was actually using children's boots because the combat boots didn't fit her. I mean, it was just insane. So if you're Black or you're Indian or you're Muslim, you're gonna encounter this. It's crazy. But this white equals normal needs to change.
Agreed. And thank you.
Comment here.
Neil?
I think the Native Americans, particularly the ones I've been associated with in the Midwest, have the same problem, the Dakota people. And what happens there is somebody goes to college and tries to learn something to help their people in there, but they're called apples because they're red on the outside and white on the inside. And that's the same thing that you're talking about in a different context. So
Oreos.
right. I knew it was a term, but I couldn't remember what it was. But,
Right.
but you're all talking about the same problems that us white people don't seem to have, except when we're talking about the poor white trash. Then it kind of comes into play there too.
Agreed. Yes, Sally.
Well, I am white, and when I worked for the airlines, we had to do things like you're talking about your hair. We were allowed to wear 2 rings. We had to wear a girdle. I had to be a certain weight. I had to wear certain shoes. I had to wear nail polish. I had to wear all kinds of stuff. And if I didn't, then I was written up. So, I mean, thank God, I think that's changed.
I agree. And I think that's the problem that we tend to miss when we try to clump everyone into a particular
pigeonhole.
There you go, pigeonhole. Then we miss out on the uniqueness of who people are. Like I was saying yesterday to Father Fred and Lori and Greg yesterday, why do I have to call myself an African American? I've never been to Africa. I'm not from Africa. I was born here. Why can't I just be American? I've never called you white American, and I've never called someone else a Chinese American. Why do we have to have that separation when it comes to identifying who we are? When and it's not like I'm dismissing my Black culture, because I'm not, because without my Black culture, I don't know who I am. But I think that sometimes we get so used to putting people in boxes, because if I keep you in a box and I can determine what I think of you and what I think how you should respond to certain things, or how you should react in certain ways. Because the thing that Erica talked about, one of the reasons why a slave owner was able to control the slaves was because they would take the biggest and the strongest Black man, and they would rape him in front of the rest of the crowd. They would emasculate him in front of the slaves, so they wouldn't run. And they would say, if we can break the back of the strong man, don't you think we can do that to you as well? Another thing that they did on the plantations, they would not put people of the same tribes together, so they could not communicate. And so it made it hard for them to put together a plan to escape. So if I put a bunch of people in a room who don't speak the same language except to know to go out to the field and work, then I just have workers. And I don't have anyone trying to come up with plans or routes of escape. I just have people. And if one gets out of line, I'll put him in front of everyone, and I'll emasculate him in front of everyone and remind them, if you act the same way, I will do the same thing. I will break your back until I get you to do exactly what I want you to do. And if you look at culture today, you're still trying to yoke African Americans, I just use that word, trying to yoke Black men and tell them who they should be and who they shouldn't be, because I want to keep you in a box. And if I keep you in a box, I can always call you that gangster. I can always call you that drug dealer. I can always call you just an athlete. I can always call you what you are or what I want you to be, as opposed to who you actually are. And I thank you, Jackie. We're labeling people entirely too much. I'm sure someone was about to jump in. But this is the things that we have to think about. And these are things that we have to look at. So is there a history of anti-Blackness? Yes, because we are always called the others, right? They're the other people. Keep those other people. I'm coming right to you, Jackie. We're just the other people. And then we'll come to you, Bobby. Yes, Jackie.
I'm absolutely in agreement with you that the labeling needs to stop, but the labeling cannot stop until there's absolute equity, and you can't track the disparities if you don't keep track of the of the different groups. And so, it's real easy to talk about, oh, let's get rid of the labels, but then you'll never be able to account for the lack of progress if we don't continue the labels until we reach equity. I absolutely deplore labels, but there's a use for them right now.
Okay, I understand that. I understand that. Yes, Bob.
We have a question from Anne. Anne is going to unmute herself and ask you a question.
I was just curious, Yvette, if I may call you that.
Okay.
So I have a 17-year-old daughter, and she's very into politics and what's happening with Black Lives Matter, and she wants to socially correct the world. And so our question to you is, how is it in your profession? Do you feel, you know, we get our news stories and we think we know how cops generally are, so to speak. But how is it really? What do you experience as far as those movements?
Okay. Wow.
Sorry, that's a lot to unpack.
And that's question. So there's two different things I will say. I support a peaceful protest.
Okay.
I support ones going out and calling attention to what has been ignored for centuries and for years and for years and for years, where where we have yet to be treated equitably with like everyone else. And I was reading I'm going to answer this. I was reading an article that talked about reparations, because that's a big thing that keeps coming up. And I was reading how every culture besides Black Americans have been paid back reparations for being stolen from their land, being used as slaves, and being used to build a country. As of 2000, I believe it was as of 2011, I think Japan was the last ones to receive reparations. And we still have yet to receive that. So when it talks about Black Lives Matter, and we're saying all lives, and I will keep saying it, I feel like I'm being a slogan right now, all lives can't matter until Black lives are treated the same equitably and across the world. And when you have two people who commit the same crime, Black and a white person, same crime, they both plead not guilty. The white man is more quick to get probation, where the Black man gets the book thrown at him. There was a Black man that sat in jail just until recently for stealing a backpack. They gave him a life sentence for stealing a backpack. Whereas a white man would be, here, pay the fine for this backpack. You've been trespassed from this store for X amount of days, and then you can go back. Brock Turner raped a young lady behind a garbage pail or behind a dumpster. And he was given probation because he was just a good old guy being a college student doing what college kids do. I believe his last name is Banks. He was an athlete in high school where he was falsely accused of raping a young lady. He spent 6 years in jail, knowing that he did not commit the crime. They didn't even want to necessarily take his court to trial. They just wanted him to plead, and he got 6 years taken from him for a crime that he did not commit. Edmund Tillman murdered for a crime he did not commit. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter, yeah, I support the movement of Black Lives Matter. What I don't support is rioting. What I don't support is tearing down big business. What I don't support is burning up buildings and different things like that. And I had one of my family members, when I talked to them about this, it's like, well, you're just saying that because you're a cop. It's like, no, because when I take this uniform off, I wear this only 10 hours a day. The other 14 hours, I'm a Black woman dealing with Black problems, real issues and problems that keep coming up. I'm coming to you, Lowell, in just a second. We keep dealing with issues that are continually coming up. And until I see justice looks like what it should be, what the Constitution said it's supposed to be, then we have to fight for Black lives. We have to fight for brown lives. We have to fight for Indigenous people whose lands are being stolen from them. And when we forget to do that because we want everyone to assimilate to, well, we moved in, you should just act like us. I can't act like you because that's not my culture and that's not where I come from. And why should I minimize myself to make you feel comfortable with my Blackness? How about you try to learn about my Blackness as I've learned about your white culture? If you take time to learn about the people that we have been trying to silence for so long, I think that's when we start to get along and start to move along and begin to have more progressive movements and progressive change happen in our world. But that can't happen until we take time and listen to the voice that has been silenced for over 400 years. Yes, Mr. Lux.
I'm going to do something that will change your image of me because I live in Indonesia. But in an instant, I put on this hat And people will say, oh my God, he's changed over.
Right.
No, the peci is a symbol of Indonesia. It's not a symbol of a religion, but it changes your perspective of me because I put on a peci. I live in a country where the people of color are mostly genetically Caucasian. They are not African Black. And this is so powerful. I really appreciate what you're doing today, but I have to leave. My president wants to speak to me.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Wayne, I don't know if you're raising your hand or just relaxing or exercising or flexing your arm, but Wayne, did you have something to say, sir?
No, man, I was reading the comments. It pops up.
Okay. Am I missing anyone? Because I don't want to move on. I thought Bobby had a comment for some at one moment, and I don't want to move from this if I'm missing something. But I think we have to get to a point in time where people come in alignment with what we're asking Black people. What is it that you want? What is it that you would like to see our government do? And it's not saying that I'm asking for special treatment. I'm just asking for equal treatment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone just unmuted. Yes, Ms. Wilson.
I wondered if you could talk, maybe this is off the subject and I came in a little late, so may have missed it, but I'm concerned about the training that police have been getting. And, you know, I hear from a few fringe people that I've known in the department that it's pretty militaristic. And what do you see for altering that?
As far as training, what are you referring to?
Treating people on the street, you know, this.
Okay. So as far as the Oregon State Police is, because I can speak to my training with the Oregon State Police, we are trained in a paramilitary type of format, where we do follow the military structures, but it's yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, ma'am, no, sir. We're taught like that. But here's where civility has to kick in.
Right.
Even though I am trained a particular way, which is to be authoritarian and to direct and to tell people to go here, go over there, sit down, get in the back of my car, you know, I advise you of your right, you have the right to remain silent. There's still such a thing called civility. I've been raised by a Southern strong Black woman who I still to this day, I get caught off and people please tell me, stop calling me sir or ma'am. I was like, that's the way I was raised. That's all I know. It's a matter of respect. Like I'm having a hard time calling some of you, my elders, by your first name because that's not a sign of respect for me. And until I've been told otherwise. But when it comes to training, you're interacting with certain people there are certain elements as far as ones that are having mental crises, those are having a drug-induced situation. You still have to treat that person with a matter of respect. And I find that one of the things that I am lucky and I've been blessed with a silver tongue of de-escalating issues is that you have to go into the situation, obviously knowing what your potential threat is, but also that is a human that's in crises. And what they need right now is your help to deal with crises. And someone talked about, when I was talking to Senator Manning about our uniforms, he was saying our uniforms look like military uniforms. And I keep telling him, it's like, it's not that we're trying to go out here and be militaristic, but we are trying to figure out ways to protect ourselves, because I can't go outside with a pea shooter and expect someone, my pea shooter, to overtake someone who's carrying an AR-15. So I have to match violence with violence. And I hate to say it that way, but I promised my daughter, I promised my grandson, I'm coming home and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get me home. And then we have to remember that when police officers go out there, they are putting their lives on the line every day, whether I respond to a call or whether I'm just driving down the street, whether I'm parked on the side of the road. My coworker, he sent me an article the other day about a young man who had been on, and I'm calling him young, he spent 41 years in law enforcement. He's sitting on the side of the road and he is ambushed, murdered as he's sitting in his patrol car. Where is the civility in that? Because he's a Black man, because he's law enforcement, he already has hate against him and he's done nothing wrong. So imagine if you are just a law enforcement where you have so much hate against you because of the uniform you're wearing, and people hate you just because of that. Now flip that and look at it. That's a Black person's life day in and day out.
There's some reason for that, I'm sorry to say.
What do you mean?
Lack of civility, lack of understanding mental health crises, just going in macho thugs. Sorry, but that's the way I see a lot of it.
Are you referring to the officers being the thugs?
Yes, I am.
Can I just say something really quick here? I'm sorry I don't have video still.
Okay.
I went through, because of my disability, I'm a 30% disabled veteran. I tried to go through the Santa Rosa Junior Police Academy in California in 2014 after I'd gotten out of the military. Made it through 11 and a half weeks before my body finally said, honey, you're done. You're 43 and the average age is 23. So what the heck do you think you're doing? But I learned a lot going through the police academy for that 11 and a half weeks out of the 20 weeks. And what I really realized and respected is that there was a lot of focus on community policing. There was a lot of focus on bias sensitivity training.
Agreed.
And there was a lot of scenario driven. Okay, here's the scenario. You're doing a traffic stop. You just placed your hand on the back end of your print on the back end of the car, and you're approaching this person for what you think is a traffic stop. And this person, and that person is Black, and he's sitting in the front car. What do? He's sweating. He looks like he's disoriented. And it turns out at the end of the scenario that the guy was having a diabetes reaction. But most of the man, we had him out of the car. We had him, proned out, and boom. And then it's like, you have to go beyond your first thoughts. You have to go beyond your knee-jerk reaction of this guy's having a drug, meth. No, not necessarily. You need to wait and naturally allow the system, the situation, to tell you to raise your protective posture. Don't assume, which means you have to let yourself be a little vulnerable. That's right. You may have to get clocked. You may get cold cocked a couple of times because you have to lower your defensive posture in order to be approachable. So if you think that security people, and I did some of that too, have it easy, if you're doing it right, you're going to get your tire slashed, you're going to get cold cocked every once in a while, and you're going to take some hits because that means you're not overreacting. And we've seen the scenario of that too. You can underreact and you can overreact, but cops have it tough. And boy, that bias, I caught myself prejudging. And it's not easy. My hat's off to the fellow law enforcement. They got it tough. It's a tough job.
All right. So there's a comment that goes out about Black people. And the comment is this: we're inherently dangerous, right? We're inherently dangerous. We are already a threat just because we exist. So I stopped a car a few weeks ago. I pulled a young Black man over. I walk up to the passenger side. This man is literally shaking. My attention was now, forget the traffic stop for a minute. Let this man know he's safe.
Exactly.
So I stopped and I said, hey, what is your name? He gave me his name. I said, hey, my name is Yvette. Can we just talk for a minute? I need you to relax. You are safe with me. Nothing is going to happen. You are okay. This traffic stop is just a minor issue. We'll move past this, but until I get to that point, I just need you to talk to me. I need you to look at me. I need you to understand you're okay. And once I got him to calm down, he smiled and I said, okay, so let's talk about why I stopped you. I'm just going to give you a warning about it. But here's something to think about. When you're doing ABC, you need to be cautious of this. And so I think that when you talk about cops and you refer to them as thugs, we have to be careful because we're generalizing cops as a whole. The actions of a few should not be what we judge the whole bunch by. And when we get to the part where we're judging a whole bag of fruit by a couple of bad fruit in the bag and we discard the whole bag, when we could have just went in and removed a couple of fruit. Maybe that's what we should think about doing. So all officers, we have a responsibility, as ones will say, to police each other, right? To correct each other, to make sure that they're doing the things the right way. And I don't have a problem with calling that out with the people that I work with, because all cops are not thugs. All cops are not bad people. And yes, you're right. We have to be on high alert and be vigilant every day that we're working. And there's going to be times when we're going to be authoritative. There's times we're going to order you what to do. There's times when we're going to say, hey, I need you just to sit down and be quiet. I'll come back to you in a second. But there's going to be other times when we have to show a little bit more compassion based on everything and the climate of everything that's going on right now. And that comes from a Black cop stopping another Black person, a Black cop stopping a white person, a Black cop stopping any other ethnicity. They're wondering, oh my God, is this the day? Is this the day something's going to happen to me? Or is this the day that, you know, I get to go home safe? And when I walk up to that car, I'm thinking of plan A, plan B, plan B, plan C as I'm walking up to that car, because I do not know when I approach that car, is this person cop friendly? Is this person in the mood where they hate cops? Is this person mental state altered? So we have to think about that also when we talk about interactions with cops. Because I had a little guy come up to me the other day and we're playing laser tag as I'm buying food. We're running around playing and laughing. I had another young Black kid come up to me and said, I just love cops. Can I give you a hug? And I made sure I stopped whatever I was doing and gave that young man a hug, because he needed to know that all cops are not bad. And all cops are looking to be a part of their community and to be a part of everything that's going on. Do I believe in police reform? Yes. I think OSP is still following some rules from 1931 when Charles P. Prey started the Oregon State Police. There are things that we have to change based on the climate of what's going on right now, and that's based on law enforcement as a whole. There are things that have to change, but we are not thugs. We're not all bad people, and we're not looking to beat up someone. And if I can go even talking about Mr. Chauvin, I mean, that was a use of force situation, but once the person begins to comply, we must reduce the force. And that doesn't matter what the situation is, force must be reduced when the person is complying. Okay? Does that answer your question, Ms. Wilson?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. Is there any other questions? Because I think that we have to get beyond beyond this before we can see people for who they are. And if I'm so focused on this, I'm gonna miss the unique person that's in front of me. And I think that that's the problem that we have, because we all come with our implicit bias as well as explicit bias. We're raised in a household where some of us are told that all cops are bad. Don't do this. If you get stopped by a cop, and this is a conversation that a lot of Black parents are having with their kids. If you're stopped by a cop, make sure your hands are on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden moves. Don't do this. When you address them, it's yes, sir, yes, yes, ma'am. Don't move unless they tell you. If they want your driver's license, announce, hey, my driver's license is in my pocket. But what happened to Philando? Man legally carrying a gun who told an officer, I have a gun on me and my wallet's here. He lost his life doing the right thing, announcing the right thing, because he was seen as a threat and not as a person. And that's where we continue to have these issues. When we continue to see Black people as inherently dangerous, then we're going to look beyond who that person is, and we're going to assume the worst, and we're going to respond accordingly. Yes, Bob.
How do you see in the future of removing bad apples?
Well, this is a part that I've been discussing with the Rep Bynum, Senator Manning, I'm gonna throw out names, Lou Fredericks, Senator Lou Fredericks. These are things that we have been talking about along with police reform. There has to be some accountability and misconduct, the way that misconduct is documented. And this goes along with, if I commit a offense at my department, I shouldn't be able to quit my department and jump over to PPB and my offense to follow. There has to be some database that keeps keeps a record of any time an officer uses force, any time that an officer is disciplined for bad behavior, any time an officer does something. There has to be a database that is taken, and that's something that we had just talked about with some House bills that were initially passed, where those records would be retained for 10 years at DPSST, and certain use of forces would be reviewed by DOJ. So if we really look at police reform in that way, where I'm being held accountable for my actions, I know that I'm being watched, and I appreciate the fact that I'm being watched. I appreciate the fact that people record me, because my actions are going to be exactly the same when the recorder's off. And that we held officers to a certain standard. I think there's some additional training that has to go forward, because when we come into law enforcement, we're given implicit biases. Oh, if that person's Black, they're going to do this. If this person is Hispanic, they're going to do this. If this person is this, they're going to act like this. And we have to stop teaching that kind of stuff. We have to, yes, I'm referring to the Department of Public Safety and Training. We have to stop telling people that all people do this, because when I generalize someone, I diminish and dismiss who these people actually are. And then I treat my response to them in that way. So if the Department of Public Safety and Standards, and as DOJ, a Department of Justice, and our senators and our Congress and our reps begin to look at what police reform looks like and how to build that, and I think that will help us as a whole, and how law enforcement is now perceived, and how they're disciplined, and how their actions are all public record. They're all public record. And we should all, as citizens, say, hey, this is what I think we need from officers. It's not taking away my gun. It's not taking away money to fund the training that officers need to go to. It's not reallocating, and I do believe money should go to mental health specialists. Some money should go to certain things that I am not equipped to do. As much as I counsel people, I don't have drug counseling under my belt. So that's not a skill that I have. And as long as we continue to look at areas where we can help law enforcement effectively do their job and be a pillar in their communities, I think the perception begins to change.
Yvette?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure, I can't speak for a parent of a teenager, but are you saying that parents of Black teens shouldn't have that talk with them?
They have to.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they have to. My son, and I call my son-in-law my son, like my kid. And he's like, Mom, I'm scared to drive down the street, and I don't know what I need to do. And I said, son, I gave you my daughter to protect her. You have my grandson to protect him. You got to do what you got to do to protect them. I said, but also you have to think of yourself when you're driving down the street in your patrol car or in your personal car. You know, if you commit an offense and you get pulled over, here's what I need you to do. I need you to sit with your hands on the steering wheel. I need you to roll down the window. I need you to do this. I need you not to make sudden movements, because until that officer sees you as a person, you are a threat. And I hate that we have to have those conversations with our young men and our young women, that you're already a threat just based on your skin tone. And if we don't have those conversations and our child doesn't come home, or they, as I would say as a mom, after they pop off at the mouth, then I'm worried about, oh my God, they could end up in jail as Sandra Bland and commit suicide. Or they could be like Mr. Gray in the back end of an ambulance, beaten up, and then when he gets out, they're like, oh, he came here like this. They're going to have situations continue to happen, and then we get to wash our hands and say, yeah, I didn't do that. It wasn't on camera. You don't see that, which is why I love body cams. I love the camera in my car. I love the camera in my office, because it gets to pick me up doing exactly the job that I'm supposed to be doing and treating people the way that they're supposed to be treated. Yes, Bobby.
Do you get discouraged with, I'm going back to the bad apples that seem to not only commit a lot of crime, but get away with it, because it seems like it makes your job 10 times as much. how do you do self-care with, every single day on the news, you got a bad apple dropping here and a bad apple dropping there. How do you self-care? How do you take care of it with your colleagues?
I agree. It is hard, but we had the conversation after the George Floyd incident, and I asked my guys, it's like, what would you do if that were me and I was kneeling on the neck of someone? What would you do? And the first thing one of our young trainees said is that, well, I would probably assume that you're doing the right thing because you're the senior officer, you've been on the job longer than I. And I said to him, I says, you have a responsibility and a liability to that person to make sure, even when taken into custody, that they're treated with the utmost respect and civility. And I'm going to keep throwing that word out. You have a responsibility, if I am wrong, to correct me and pull me off. My status as a supervisor doesn't matter at that point if my actions are wrong. And so I said, you have a responsibility to correct my actions. You have the responsibility to call out my actions. And if you refuse to do that, then you and I need to talk about what's going on. Because if we don't correct the actions of those who are doing wrong, or call it out and move it up the chain, or file a complaint, then that action is going to continue. I remember reading that Mr. Chauvin has 18 misconducts when this thing happened. And yet he was a training officer.
Right.
If the person has that many misconducts, are they fit to be a training officer? Are they teaching a person how to continue to be a bad apple? We have to review our training, and we have to look at those different things. If I got a misconduct against me, I'm sure that I would be removed from training because I'm not proving myself to make good judgment call. I'm not proving to be a person who can lead and mentor someone. So we have to look at those training things when it comes up to situations like that. Is this the right person for this? And should I remove them from this? And not be afraid to think that officers are going to retaliate because you call out bad behavior. You'll have to call it out regardless.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. You have to unmute yourself, Rich.
I did. No, there we go.
This
Oh,
is
I'm sorry.
I think I'm on. Well,
Oh no.
okay. Yeah, this is Rich. I had to leave for a few minutes, so I'm just picking up. Yvette, I had an experience and interesting kind of an irony. It might have been with you. Traveling, I don't know how long you've been a trooper, the Oregon, state trooper, but a few years ago, when I trying to figure out what year it was, I was leaving to go up to the airport very early in the morning. I'm talking about 5 o'clock, 5:15, something like that, very early. And I usually take, early morning flights because I had to be on the East Coast and so forth, 3 hours difference. Anyway, I was going at a certain speed. I think I was maybe like most people in the morning. Yes, I was going, instead of 65 or 70, I might have been going 75. No trucks and so forth. I didn't see any police cars, and I was, quite frankly, a little bit late for my flight, even early in the morning with Southwest Airlines. But anyway, to make a long story short, evidently I must have cut my speed down a little bit and maybe crossed the line a little bit. I don't know whether it was on the far lane, or the middle, or the first, the first lane. So there it was, the flashing lights behind me, and I said, "Uh-oh. I'm already running late. So what do I do?" Well, of course, I stop, pull over. Incidentally, those bright lights at night, they kind of wake you up. In fact, I've always wondered why all those lights flash. Well, they're kind of scary. So I got pulled over, and sure enough, it was a, other than a white, it might have been you who has stopped me on Interstate 204. I know you probably have a short memory, but maybe you recall that here. I know I had my airline ticket on the on the dashboard because I was getting it out, trying to figure out exactly, because I did have a gate. They assigned me a gate number and so forth. So, but I was very pleasantly treated. She said, you know, you were kind of slow. I've been following for a number of miles. Did you see me? I said, no. I said, well, you were going, you know, a little bit fast, but, you know, it's early in the morning, but then you came down to under 55, maybe 50 miles an hour. And that's unusual early in the morning. Everybody's speeding. A lot of people are. So I think we talked pleasantries. And I said I was going to the airport. Yes, I was probably going a little bit over the limit, and I kind of slowed down a little bit. And I don't know why I slowed down, but of course, if I were you, I would pick me up too. You know, I could have been intoxicated. I could be falling. In fact, you commented, if it was you, are you falling asleep? Is that why you cut your speed down? And I said, well, possibly. So interesting. It could have been you, but I don't know. But I think it probably was. But anyway, you kind of gave me a warning. She said, you know, leaving in the morning, you know, you've got your coffee. Please, please do not fall asleep. And if you feel to fall asleep, whether you're late for the flight, you pull off, get some coffee, walk around, and then continue.
All right.
So was it you?
That sounds like it. So I will tell you all a secret. For the last 26 years and 10 months, I am the only Black female that works for the Oregon State Police as a trooper. So I am the only one. So if you were stopped, it was definitely by me. And
I think it was you.
Yes, I was. And I was
This
probably
goes a number of years back. I'm talking about 2010, 2011, 12, somewhere
right.
along in there.
Yes, more than likely
If it was you, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, that was favorable.
Great.
I don't write a lot of tickets. I think that most of the things I can accomplish with people to get them to slow down is to kind of give a warning and just kind of find out what's going on. Because the other day I was stopped some young man and his wife, and they were on their way to the hospital. They were in and out of traffic. To find out they were in the midst of having a baby. She had dilated to 4 centimeters. I'm like, get behind me. And we're going through every light. Let's get to the hospital. I made
Baby, yeah, code 3.
Have you ever delivered a baby?
Oh gosh, no. No.
Outstanding.
I probably wouldn't give the baby back because I love babies that much. I run out of this baby. Like,
You know, you all should know that when Yvette retires December 31st, she's moving to Houston, Texas.
Yes.
His daughter there, she has a grandson who's 9 years old, and he already has marked a bedroom in grandma's house and been talking to her about all the things they're going to be doing. So I think a young man down there is about to get a great grandmother, I shouldn't say great grandmother, a wonderful grandmother. Yeah.
Yes, and he and my daughter are both spoiled, so I'll get to love up on them a little bit more, and it'll be great. The shopping trips will cost me a little bit more because we're both down there together, but he has a room, and when I told him he had a room, he's like, I'm grabbing my backpack and I'm moving in. You can take me to school. I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah. He's like, but you promised. So as much as I love him, I would be getting up at 6:30 in the morning to take him to school just because that's grandma. Yeah. But I look forward to it. And then, I mean, after that, my biggest thing is now to work with kids and to, not just from a police aspect, but to also give our young kids some tools that they are missing in the schools these days with home economics, how to do finances and, different things of writing checks and, stock investing money and different things like that. But I want to give our kids something that takes them away from this. Because my grandson, he's got a Nintendo Switch and he plays on that thing more than anything. I'm like, hey, when you come to my building, guess what? All toys or electronic devices get left at the door and you're gonna learn how to be kids again. And that means rolling, I'm telling their parents, bring them some clothes that you don't mind that gets dirty and that we can run around the grass and get muddy and dirty together, but your kids are gonna be kids. But I'm also gonna give them tools that will help them be successful adults. And I think that's how we start changing the way the world views us, is that we give our young people, we give them a fighting chance, we open doors for them. And we always have the saying is each one teach one. If I can teach someone how to be kinder, if I can teach someone how to love beyond color and beyond circumstance, I think that's where our world starts changing. If you haven't figured out, on the other side of my life also, I'm a pastor, so I go back into the love part of everything. But we have to learn how to give back. And if we want people to treat us and see us differently, then we have to show them who we are and not be afraid to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. Because the more that we sit in uncomfortable situations, I went and sat at a park with a young lady who had a lot of questions about, the killings and different things that were going on. I sat in this park with this young lady that I had never met before in my life, but we sat in the park for 2 hours to have a conversation. And when she left and when I left, I had a better insight from her point of view, and she had a better insight. So I think it's time that we go beyond our own particular barriers that we set up for ourselves and extend ourselves so that we can learn more about our cultures, and we can at some point in time get away with some parts of racism. We're not going to change the world overnight, and people are going to hold on to their prejudices for as long as they live. But at least if you take the opportunity to sit down in those rooms and listen to people, I think we get a better awareness.
Yvette, thank you so much. And I want to tell everyone that we talked to Yvette once she gets moved and settled about becoming a regular part of this program that we have. And so you're going to be seeing Yvette again.
Yes.
She's agreed to do that. But thank you so much, Yvette.
It was wonderful, Yvette. Very, very nice job. I wish we had more time. Yeah. And I think everybody gives Yvette a round of applause for, one, her service, her professional service that she has done so hard, putting her life on the line every day she puts that uniform on. And number two, for her retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job, Sergeant.
Good job. Good job.
So proud of you.
I appreciate you all offering and being so warm in this chat. I would love, there are so many of you that I know you have extra questions that I would love for you to call me if you would like to, and we could discuss offline or discuss however you want to. I'm gonna even jump in this chat right quick and put in a phone number that is on 24/7. And if there's some things that you want to discuss, that is my phone number. Please feel free to call. Because I don't want us to leave here with any confusion. I don't want us to leave here with any questions. I'm on till 2 a.m. And I'm up at 10 a.m. But my phone rings 24/7. I answer it because I want to make sure that we all come to a better understanding, that we learn how to move on, and that we learn to see each other for who we are. No one is colorblind. And no one doesn't see color, as ones I've heard say around here. We are all unique individuals, and we have a lot to offer into our world. And the more that we have these conversations, we're going to grow. We're going to change a lot of people. And so, again, I appreciate you, Ms. Cole, Greg.
Lori.
I'm sorry, Lori.
Thank
Greg,
you.
and Greg for just letting me know about this. And like I said, I've been wanting to be on here since day one, but we've had police life happening, and I'm going to try to make sure I can carve out more time to be here because this was informative for me, and I feel like I've learned a lot.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you so much. And I
Thank you.
want to tell everyone that next week, Greg is our facilitator, and the topic is racial triggers for white people. So that promises to be a very interesting discussion. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.